So we've talked about the ancient Near East and looked at a couple of cultures at this point, including the ancient Sumerians and the ancient Akkadians. Now, with the Akkadians, again, we saw that they did something really kind of new and unusual, which was unifying an area under a centralized power base, several independent city-states being controlled by one king. Now, Akkadian power comes to an end, 2150 BCE, and this is due to the invasion of some people known as the Gutians, who come in and essentially militarily defeat the Akkadians, but they don't stick around. They don't stay. They don't establish really any sort of rule or power or control. We also then, shortly thereafter, see another invasion, which we'll talk about in a little bit, by the Elamites. Now, what happens though is after the Akkadians fall from power, the local city-states of Sumer essentially reassert control, and Ur in particular becomes quite prominent. And the kings of Ur establish a new dynasty, if you will, the third dynasty of Sumeria. And as a result of this, we have this Neo-Sumerian period which is really centered around the city-state of Ur. So in this next image we're going to look at here, we can see something that's a little bit reminiscent of an earlier image. When we talked about the Sumerians, we talked about the city of Uruk, and we talked about the ziggurat and white temple that were created there. So this is indeed also a ziggurat. This is the ziggurat of the city of Ur. Now, when we look at this example, when we talk about Ur, there's a couple things that are really quite notable. First off, you might not realize this initially, but this structure is in fact 1,000 years more recent than the one from Uruk. So a full 1,000 years have passed since our discussion of the White Temple and the Ziggurat at Uruk. And here at Ur, another thing that's important is that this one's really quite a bit larger. The platform here is 50 feet in height. The staircase is on either side of 100 steps. This is really quite a significant structure. Now, its current state is a little bit misleading, however. If you look at the image here, you can see that it looks to be in pretty good condition. Well, the reason it looks as well maintained as it does is because it was in fact restored. Under the reign of Saddam Hussein, in fact, the facade and staircases of this structure were rebuilt, and so it gives us a pretty good approximation of how it would have originally appeared. So here in this reconstruction drawing of the Temple of Ur, one of the things that we can see is that, much like the earlier ziggurat from Uruk, the upper layer is missing. So in this reconstruction, though, we get a rough idea of how it may have originally appeared. Another interesting sidebar here, really, when we talk about biblical accounts of this part of the world, and we talk about architecture, one of the most famous architectural examples, of course, is the famous Tower of Babel. And in fact, the Tower of Babel, the Babylonian tower that we're really referring to there, was almost certainly, in fact, much more like this than other possible inceptions people might visualize. It was almost certainly, in fact, a ziggurat. So here in this next image, what we're looking at is a seated statue of a man named Gudea. And Gudea was an interesting guy, an important person. He was the NC of Lagash. And what's really unusual about Gudea is that there are about 24 images, 24 portraits of him that survive today. And this particular one, which as you can see is missing its head, he's holding on his lap the plans for a temple. And so this is a statue which is referring to the fact that he was responsible really for the creation of a temple. And that's important, that's a big deal. He was actually responsible for the building of many temples. But of course, the thing about this statue that's really probably most remarkable is the material. So we've already talked a little bit about stone and how rare and how expensive that was in this part of the world in this time in history. But this particular statue you're looking at here, as well as many of his, are in fact made of diorite. Now, diorite is a stone that had to be imported from quite some distance, and also at great cost. Diorite was really quite expensive. And to give you an idea of just how much of a prestige material diorite really was, there's actually an inscription on one of his statues, which says, this statue has not been made from silver, nor from lapis lazuli, nor from copper, nor from lead, nor yet from bronze. It is made of diorite. So to wrap things up here with the Neo-Sumerians, as I mentioned previously, we have another invasion that comes in here at this point. The Elamites invade, and they bring Neo-Sumerian power to an end. And after this occurs, we have kind of a period in time of rebuilding and restructuring, but what we're left with really is just a series of independent city-states once again. And so we kind of have a power vacuum, if you will, which you'll see in the next section here. Another group is more than willing to come in and fill.